The D-to-D4 ratio refers to the ratio between the lengths of the index finger, or D2, and the ring finger, also known as D4. It has been studied in psychology, biology, and endocrinology because it is believed to correlate with exposure to certain hormones, particularly testosterone and estrogen during fetal development. Here's what the ratio typically suggests. What the D-to-D4 ratio represents. 1. A lower D-to-D4 ratio, which means a shorter index finger compared to the ring finger, associated with higher prenatal testosterone exposure, often seen more commonly in males. Linked to traits typically associated with masculinity, such as increased competitiveness or aggression, though the evidence varies. 2. A higher D-to-D4 ratio, where the index finger is closer in length or longer than the ring finger, associated with higher prenatal estrogen exposure or lower testosterone exposure, more common in females, may be associated with traits linked to femininity such as empathy or nurturing tendencies, though again, the correlations are not definitive. Applications of the D-to-D4 ratio. Sexual orientation. Some research suggests that men who identify as homosexual often exhibit either a typical male ratio, which means a lower D-to-D4 ratio, or a hyper-masculinized ratio, which is an even lower D-to-D4 ratio than the typical male pattern. This suggests that prenatal testosterone exposure may play a role in the development of sexual orientation. Health correlations. Lower D-to-D4 ratios have been linked to an increased risk of certain conditions, such as ADHD or autism. On the other hand, higher D-to-D4 ratios have been associated with an increased risk of anxiety or depression. Key point: the D-to-D4 ratio is fixed at birth. Because the ratio is determined by hormonal exposure during early fetal development, it is not something that can be modified by behavior or environmental factors after birth. Researchers use it as a potential biomarker to study developmental processes and their connection to various behavioral and health outcomes.